Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, our precious pack, and welcome back once more to VEGA Conflict. And today, as I said before, we're going to be talking about the Wendigo. So, we're going to do a quick once-over of the primary stats, the modifiers, the slotting, and stuff like that. And then we're going to talk about potential auto-fittings and stuff like that, and then we're going to conclude the video. So, 2-hour repair time, typical of Tier 8. It's a fighter class, nothing new there. We knew exactly what it was going to be. The effective targeting range is 3,000 meters, but remember the effective projectile range is much further than that. Health, 15,800, maximum mass, 18,000 tons. Cargo, 3,500,000 tons. Ship speed, which is the forward speed, 900 meters per second. Rotation speed, 58 degrees per second. Strafe speed, 600 meters per second. Sector speed, 600 astronomical units per hour. Primary fitting, 2 ablative, 2 armor, 2 specials, and 4 weapon slots at Mark 1. Let's go ahead and let's change over to the backside real quick. Okay. We have the Bloodthirst Overdrive, Scramble Overdrive, the Weapon Mass Reduction, a 10% Weapon Mass Reduction, 20% Armor Mass Reduction, a 30% Ablative Armor Mass Reduction, 25% Shield Bypass, 20% Resurgence, and then the Resistance stat. And then for the slotting, we have the Cosmetic Skin slot and the Trigger slot, which I still don't farm any of the triggers because I don't see a point in using them when, that's basically what I just said. I just don't see a point in them. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the Bloodthirst Overdrive next, see if it's any different than previous versions or if it's all the same. Okay, continuous aggression increases the damage output of umbral hulls when 700. Okay, so it's the exact same. So let's go ahead and let's jump into the stacks and stuff like that and see if anything in there is different. Maximum stacks 5, DPS. Nope, it's still the same. Okay, let's go ahead and let's jump over to the unique overdrive to the ship, which is going to be the Scramble. When entering an enemy's firing arc, the Wendigo gains a speed boost in order to close the gap and attack its target. The effect lasts for 5 seconds. In said 5 seconds, it gets a 30% shield bypass bonus and a 50% increase in movement speed, which is forward speed. So it goes from 900 to 1,350. It helps it when it needs to rush the target, which is probably going to be useful for auto farming, but let's go ahead and let's step on to the next one, which is going to be the Resistance. 5% alien resistance, 50% blight resistance, 100% alien and blight nebula resistance, and counter ricochet of 3. Okay, before we move on, I just want to bring up one little subject. Tier 7 Umbral had higher built-in alien resistance than Tier 8 does. Tier 7 had the higher values and stuff like that. And in the development teams, I don't know if it could be called a push or something like that to simplify Tier 8 over the previous tiers. I'm pretty sure that I've said this before, and it was that I found Tier 8 to be extremely boring. The most entertaining ship by far was the Vector for me, but then we got the Zettabyte and 12,000 meter range built-in auto-homing plasma blast. That's just amusing to me. But so far, resistance-wise, they have been extremely poor in terms of resistance, and you actually have to upgrade them to be part of the quote-unquote RPS system. I say quote-unquote because we still haven't actually seen a valid reason to use it. But let's go ahead and let's cut to some gameplay, and I'll start talking about the auto-fittings and stuff like that. Okay, last time you saw me was over an hour ago, and it's only been a few seconds for all of you. But I went ahead and I took a break to play some other games, and now it's time to talk about the fittings that I was referring to about the auto. So, there is actually a few of them, but the primary one that I'm going to recommend is going to be the following, and it consists of Cascade Missile, Horde Cannon, and an Arrestor Beam on the Wendigos. Now, the reason for the Horde Cannon is for solid DPS and a good output to be able to just maintain the ablative. The Cascade is to allow for a harder hitting alpha weapon, but also allow a bit of area of control, so if you can get 2 or more ships stuck next to each other, you can just basically bombard both of them with some AoE bound damage and just do a nice little bit to them. The Arrestor Beam is to hold the single target still, so whatever the Horde Cannon's hitting is going to be hit by most of the projectiles to allow for maximum regeneration that you're going to be maintaining through ablative. And then as for the durability fitting, well, you're actually going to be using level 1 ablative, level 1 parasite, basically level 1 everything. You're going to be using Sunder Thruster, stuff like that you equip prior to it. But other than that, the fitting is extremely simple, easy to copy, and even easier to use. Because it's an auto-fitting, you're going to be using certain fleet formations, just depends on how many of the ships you want and of what type. For this, I'm going to recommend at least 2 to 3 Wendigos and 2 to 3 Valravens, unless you want to throw some Amarocks in to be able to help reduce repair time by shutting down enemy weapon systems. But in all actuality, you could achieve lower repair time by simply destroying the targets more quickly, actually encouraging you to use 3 Wendigos, 3 Valravens to just maximize your efficiency as they're picking the targets apart. Especially because the Wendigos are going to be holding the targets still, while the Valravens rip them to pieces, because dual firing arcs 4 weapon slots means they have an effective 8 weapons on board, and they're all being brought to bear on a single target that is basically being held still, all the while the target's defenses are being hammered away at by the Wendigos. So you're basically asking them to start one-shotting ships at that point. Aside from that, on paper, you have to be careful of certain fleets because there is certain ship types that seem to be stasis resistant despite the fact that the player version doesn't have that. What I'm referring to is the Leviathan and the Zettabyte targets. Now, this is something I've known for a little while now, but I haven't talked about it, even though it's most likely and clearly a bug. The Vectors and Valravens within the fleet, Vectors when they're out of phase space, they're immune to stasis that is applied via the Dreadnought, the Leviathan Dreadnought's overdrive. And that is specifically, it can achieve 100%, and if you're like me, you rush the targets, you have plenty of targets within the firing base, so 5 of them within should never be an issue to achieve 100%, but the issue is, it doesn't seem to be applying. So, whether it's a bug on the Leviathan, or them being 100% resistant to stasis as a bug or an intended feature, it was never told to us, something's going on there, and if you decide to try and auto them, just be careful, because this type of fitting won't work against them, because they're going to be moving too quickly. And I don't know if the standard stasis will apply to them. I know it works on the ogres just fine, though. So that's why it makes it seem like they're either resistant to it or it's bugged. And if it's bugged, well, bring it up to the development team, get it taken care of. If it's not bugged and it's an intended feature, well, the development team has an issue on their hands then. Because that means that they're doing the same thing they did before, where they're making it so the AI ships are better than the player ships in some way or another. But that aside, that's basically all I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to bring up all of that, and one quick note that I want to talk about for the final bit of the video. Just look at the Wendigo. Tell me that does not look amazing. That out of all the Umbral ships we've had so far, this one with its face, it reminds me of Diablo. I don't know why. But that's going to be it. Be safe out there, my pack. Happy hunting, and as always, I'll see you later.